Hi everyone, this is Gary Wilson and welcome to this week's live webinar for the Investor Agent Training Program. Also, for those of you who are in the other related programs, Flipping for Profits, Turning Rental Problems into Real Estate Profits, which is about buying rentals, turning real estate problems into real estate profits. Or sorry, that first one was real estate profits without the headaches, without the pain. That's the first one. That's on buying properties. The second one was turning the problems into profits. That's the management one. There's also the wholesaling program. So welcome aboard to all of you. And for those of you who are coming through the Investor Agent program, which is most of you, just remember you can take any of those other programs for half price, because once you're a student, you get that privilege. In any case, a couple things here. For those of you who are new, you'll notice that you're all live. You're by default in mute mode. That's the system that does that. So what you do is you use the question box to type in your questions, okay? And from time to time, I will unmute people here and there just to go over certain subjects. But that's how we communicate. Also, each day, every day after we do a webinar, please check your emails from Beverly. It's going to have the recording of the webinar. It's also going to give you the upcoming schedule and any important information that she needs to communicate with you. That's how she does that. Sometimes we do system upgrades. Sometimes we add content, change content, modify content according to what's happening in the marketplace or any legal reasons or financial reasons. Sometimes things change and we've got to update your information. So please keep that in mind. You should look at that every week. Let's see, anything else I can think of? Also, you want to coordinate and collaborate with others in your area. I mean, that's one of the big benefits of this. It's not like traditional owner-occupant business where everybody's kind of independent and you do things on your own and you kind of hunker down and circle the wagon, so to speak. With this, you'll find that it's actually much more profitable to coordinate with other people. We got plenty of examples. I mean, there was a group of agents in Hoover, Alabama, just did their first workshop together. 3 of them basically knocked it out of the park. I mean, they had 29 registrants, 24 showed up, 4 signups that night on the spot, and they were literally showing properties the very next day. I mean, that's the kind of feedback we like to hear, and that's the kind of activity and results you guys deserve and should expect. Okay, so definitely big incentive to coordinate with each other. Okay, let me go back here and get to some questions before we get into the night's content. Let's see here, let me go back. We did have a question on contracts, so let me go back to find that. Hang on one second. Okay, this is from Karina. Hi, Karina. Karina's asking, do you have your own purchase contract forms, or do you use the local state's real estate forms? So the answer is, guys, we absolutely start with your board's forms. Okay, your board's forms, your real estate board, are generally coming from your state. Every state has its own state board of realtors, okay? Usually it's part of your state bureau of incorporation, or some states call it something different, but that's essentially the gist of it, okay? And in there, they take the basic plain language, okay, and create the contracts, and you absolutely should use them. So I'm not knocking any other programs or the late night gurus and things like that. That's not what my intention is. My intention is simply this. You can use all those other forms. In fact, I've done them in the past, the ones we get off the internet. The challenge is this. Number one is they may or may not meet the plain language laws of your state. Every state has what's called plain language laws based on federal legislation, okay? So all of their board's forms, number one, are already approved. They already meet the plain language laws of your state. Number two is they're not just approved, they're actually approved all the way to the Supreme Court level in your state. So there's a lot of reasons to use those forms. And so to give an example of why, I'll give an example of a case that happened several years ago. There was a landlord who was renting to a Section 8 tenant. And as a result, he used the Section 8 lease, okay? Now here's the kicker. Obviously, Section 8 is a federal program. It's a subsidy program for renters who need assistance, okay? And it's administered from one of the departments, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, okay? Now what happened is this landlord was going to evict the tenant. So he filed what's called a landlord-tenant complaint at the magistrate's court. Went to the magistrate's court, won. The tenant appealed, okay, because he went and got some free legal help. I think they call it community services or neighborhood legal services or community legal services. I forget the name. They're all paid for by tax dollars, by the way, to provide free legal services to people who can't afford it. So the attorney encouraged them to appeal because they have the right to appeal for any reason. Doesn't even have to be a good reason. Well, they appealed to our arbitration. The owner won again. And then this time the attorney said, let's go to court of common pleas, which our arbitration is under, by the way. Went to an actual judge in the common pleas court, and this judge looked at the lease and said, well, you know what? This lease isn't from our state. I don't know that it meets the plain language laws, and I'm not going to approve it because it's not pre-approved in our state's court system. So he threw the case out, and that landlord had to go all the way back to the beginning and start all over again. And this had already been going on for 13 months. And the whole time that tenant's sitting in there with basically a free ride. So the point is this. There are some actual, valid, real legal reasons to use your board's forms, and that's just one example, okay? Now, that doesn't mean that you are restricted to using it the way it's delivered. You certainly do, but they all give you the right to add an attachment, add an addendum, okay? And you should do that, and you should add things like additional rules and regulations, which is it's not only legal, but sometimes it's expected. So what you would do is you would cover rules and regulations for your property that may or not be covered in the standard lease, okay? Now, the only restriction is those rules and regulations cannot run counter to your local, state, or federal laws, okay? So they have to be in compliance with local, state, and federal laws. But you can certainly add rules and regulations to that lease to further protect you and your client. So, Karina, that is an excellent question. I'm glad you brought it up. Hopefully everybody understands that. So when let's say you have an investor approach you with one of those internet forms, just politely tell them and say, look, by law, you have to submit the offer. You can certainly do that. But they don't have the same protections that you would get under the state if they would just use the state approved forms. And you can add, again, remember, add an addendum to those state contracts. And you can take the language, any particular language that client wants, and add that into an addendum. And anytime you have an addendum in a contract, the addendum, if there's language in the addendum that covers the same subject that's covered in the basic or the body of the main contract, the language in the addendum overrides the language in the contract. So keep that in mind. So you have a way to accommodate your investor for their special language while using your board's forms, making your broker happy, number one. And number two, and making sure you and your client have protection in the court system of your state. So sorry to ramble on that, guys. That's a good question. It hasn't come up in quite a while, and I hope you all feel a lot better about the answer. And you can see yourself communicating that to your clients, by the way. Okay, let's see if there's any other questions before we get into the subject tonight. Let's see, this is, whose question is this? This is Peter. Hey, Peter. Okay, so Peter's asking, okay, when I have been prospecting, I have encountered some investors, they have one or more rentals. In that situation, how would you engage them so as to gain them as a client? So Peter, good question. What I recommend is, start with the school report and show them, where they should be purchasing their properties. Okay, let them see for themselves. Actually, show them the report, let the data do the talking. But you can also show them some of the tools you have. So in a training program, you're all given certain tools. There's an online calculator you can use. There's an Excel spreadsheet calculator you can use. There's a basic cash flow worksheet you can use, but that everybody has something like the basic one. But you show them that Excel spreadsheet or the rental property reporter, which is the online version. Often that type of thing will win them over. The other thing too is you can show them, like Melissa Data, for example, plug in zip codes and show them you can see by zip codes which postal routes have more rentals, because you'll see the apartment count, and the more apartments, the more rentals. Okay. You can also show them your planning commission website for your area, either your municipality or your county. I like the county ones better. You can show them all the demographics and social graphics for every individual neighborhood. They break it down. Usually that data comes at least partly from uscensus.gov. Okay. In Canada, there's a different version of that. Can Post or Canada Post. In fact, there's a separate module 1 for Canadian students, so you guys should be aware of that and look at that. But in any case, back to this. Show them how they can determine the actual correct areas to invest in, not based on guessing or driving through neighborhoods, which is important. You do have to drive through the areas, but the actual raw data tells them exactly where they should be purchasing what type of properties. Okay, so Peter, you can set yourself apart by just using the information that's given to you in the program. In fact, everything we give you is intended to share with your clients. You don't keep it to yourself. You actually share it with them. We call it prosperity through service. You serve them, giving them everything they need. The fact is, you got one thing they don't have, which is a realtor's license, so they still need you. And if you demonstrate your worth, you add value, they'll have no reason to not use you. Okay, so let me move on here and see what other questions we have. Karina says, cool. Okay, you're very welcome. Okay, let me do this, guys. Let me go over to where I was going to get into tonight. What I'm going to do is, we tend to spend a lot of time on the really glamorous marketing campaigns, the ones that obviously the workshop is extremely powerful. By the way, we talked about this last week. If you guys are doing workshops, keep an eye out for an announcement we're going to be making next month about helping you set up a classroom. Okay, it's the workshop is the prerequisite for it. The classroom is like advanced level, but anybody can do it. It's not. You don't necessarily have to have done a workshop to do the classroom. I'm just telling you, it will be in your best interest to do a workshop first before you do the classroom scenario. It's a multi-week process I'm going to take you guys through for those who apply for it. And I can tell you, it's the technique I used to generate the most kick. I think I mentioned last week there were years I would make $800,000 in commissions just from doing the classroom. So if you haven't taken the workshop seriously, I think you should really do it. And again, it's back to this. I'm going to show you some other things that you can use, okay, that you can lead generate to supplement your other campaigns. Okay, so let me slide my panel back over here. So I'm not going to be able to see your questions for a moment. So I have my cursor available to me, and I can scroll up and down. All right, first things first. Every one of you should join your local investors club. I like RIA, that's Real Estate Investors of America. There's another group called ACRE, which is American Congress of Real Estate. They actually had the same parent organization. A lot of people don't realize that. Back in the 80s, ACRE was king, and it kind of petered out, and then RIA started kind of taking over. They're in every major city, sometimes multiple groups, and they're in all the secondary cities too. All right, even the smaller towns. We found them literally all over the North America. But you should join your local club. It's very inexpensive. Okay, and keep this in mind. I just want you to just slow down here for a second. You're not joining this club, your local investors club, to necessarily get investors as clients. You can certainly do that. The biggest value in joining your local investors club is this. There's other vendors there. There's contractors. There's inspectors. There's lenders. There's insurance guys. And there's all kinds of, Lowe's, Home Depot, window suppliers, carpeting suppliers. They all will clamor to get some face time with all these investors because they know they're repeat clients. So they become vendors in your local investor club. Well, the benefit to you is this. You have access to those guys. You also have access to all the people who've been using them. So you can get first-hand experiences with these different vendors. The reason that's important is when you're working with these investors, people flipping homes, people buying rentals, inevitably they're going to ask you at some point, who do you know who can do this, whatever this is, carpeting, painting, kitchen counters, HVAC, plumbing, roofing, the list goes on and on and on. Well, now you have a list of people that you can recommend. Okay, so these are all vendors in your local investor club. Now, what I do is this. I don't necessarily pinpoint one particular vendor. What I'll do is I say, here's the ones I understand get recommended the most. Here's the top 2 or the top 3 in some cases. And you tell them this is the words you want to use. You say, I suggest you check these folks out, do your own due diligence, and make up your decision. I'm just telling you, here's their contact information. I understand they do a pretty good job. Unless you've used them personally, you should say, I've never used them. This is just the feedback I'm getting from other investors. Okay? So now you can provide contractors and suppliers and other service providers to your clients just by belonging to your local RIA group, all right? And you get firsthand knowledge of them. Now, if you haven't guessed, obviously you can get business also from joining your local RIA group, because not every member of RIA is doing all the no money down order financing stuff. A lot of them are actually using cash, buying better properties, okay? The ones who grow substantially, grow a big portfolio of bigger and bigger buildings, so they start using more and more cash, okay? So it's really important that you join your local investors club. I hope I emphasize that enough. You don't have to be an active participant if you don't want to, but you certainly should be at least an observer, going there to go to the meetings and network and meet the contractors, hand out your card. If you got special reports, hand those out too. If you have booklets, bring those with you, and basically start getting contacts, okay? In any case, let me just bring the panel back over here real quick to see if we have any questions on that before I continue. That's actually a real easy one, kind of obvious. All right, let's go back here. We do have a question from Karina. Let's see. Okay, so Karina's asking, okay, is the MLS your best source for computing average sales price in a specific area? How do you compute for it when there are a few sales that have sold but are far from the norm and may screw the average price, or skew the average price, excuse me. Got any rules, guidelines? Yeah. So Karina, it depends on the type of property, okay? If you're dealing with a duplex, you can often use comps that are from the single family home arena, okay? And that'll help you provide information. So that's one thing to remember. If you're dealing with like a 4-unit, you can also provide comps that have 3 units and 5 units. And what you're looking for is information at the unit level. So you have like an average cost per unit, what the market rents for the area. Similar. They might have similar amenities. Some have laundry, some don't. Some have off-street parking, some don't. But the bottom line is, if you can get to the unit level, income and expense at the unit level, and basically value at the unit level, you can really work with any number of units. You're just basically extrapolating what those values are. So say you've got to provide comps for a 10-unit building. There's not a lot of 10-unit buildings. You can look at the 5 units. You can look at the 15 units and look at the cost per unit, income and expense also, by the way, and see if they're in alignment at the unit level. Now, another thing too is this. If you're dealing with larger properties, you can often go on to like LoopNet and CoStar to see what other properties might be selling for. Generally, those are going to be limited to the really big properties, and non-residentials out there too, retail, storage, so forth and so on. But another thing too, Karina, is remember, all of the property data has been loaded online now. So this is what I really want you to take away from this. If you're, it doesn't really matter where you are actually. Almost every MLS system we've seen now across the U.S. and Canada has access to property data. Okay, if you're in, like I just spent a lot of time in Southern California. So if you're in Southern California, most of the MLS systems are using what's called a realist, R-E-A-L-I-S-T. It's a product of CoreLogic, which is on I-5 heading down to San Diego, okay? And what you can do is go in there and say, okay, computer, give me all the properties that have 10 units. So if you're looking, Karina, for information relative to 10-unit properties, you can go look at all the 10-unit properties in your MLS area. And it basically covers the realist interface, gets you into the county level data, okay, which is your property, basically your tax assessor data. You often get a brief little pseudo appraisal, if you will. On that, they tell you everything you need to know about location, number of rooms, number of bathrooms, all kinds of stuff is out there. So you can find comps, Karina, from by going outside the MLS and using your local property data files. That's probably the most important thing you can do, because that's actual raw data, and it's what's entered. You know, it's what actually people paid for and sold for, and that data is entered for your deed recorder's office, okay? So it's absolutely reliable data. So keep that in mind. That's probably the best thing you can do to get that information. Okay, let's see. Fassel, great information. Thanks, Fassel. Hope you're doing well, buddy. Let's see. Peggy Elliott says, had difficulty with GoToWebinar. Hey, Peggy, shoot me an email. Let me know what happened or what didn't happen. If you want to do a strategy call, let me know. We've been using GoToWebinar. Matter of fact, we're using GoToWebinar now. We've been using it for years. Every now and then, there's like a system hiccup. We've had situations over the last 3 years. I think it's happened twice where GoToWebinar, I'm sorry, it happened once. It just stopped. It was the weirdest thing, and I'm just chugging right along there. I had no idea you guys were cut off. Another time, it actually wasn't GoToWebinar. As a car had run into the side of a building that I was in, right where the trunk line for the cable came in. So it knocked out the Wi-Fi in the building. That was kind of interesting. Let's see. This is Mio. Okay, Mio's asking or saying, okay, investors who fix and flip don't like realtors because they want to buy directly from the owner without using a realtor. Is there any benefit for them working with me as a realtor? Absolutely. So, Biho, here's the thing. I mean, I'm a flipper too, and any flipper worth their salt, they want to make money. So here, let's say you did provide them with a property. Okay, they're not going to turn it away just because you're involved. If the numbers make sense, the numbers make sense. And the fact is, the guys you're talking about are the ones who have been, going to the, the guru webinars or guru, workshops, things like that. They'll do 3-day boot camps and things like that, and they're learning all these habits that, quite frankly, hurt themselves. They're just not as successful as they could be if they use you, because the fact is, when they use you, you not only have access to all the tools that those other guys have that are not licensed, you have access to additional tools that they don't have, okay? You also have access to additional training that they don't have. And more importantly, if you use the techniques we use to get inventory, you can find inventory all day long for these guys, okay? And they'll start to rely on you. Once you start feeding them properties, believe me, you get them conditioned to start using you. So the thing is back to what we were talking about with Peter, is you need to demonstrate value. And the way you demonstrate value is by using the tools and the techniques that we teach, particularly the marketing campaigns for actually locating inventory, because everybody struggles with that. When you approach the owners of those properties correctly, you get much higher responses, higher conversion rates, and you can then provide that inventory to your investors. Okay, so that's how you do that. It's just a matter of I know you're fairly new to the program, but once you get into the marketing, you'll see much more profoundly how you can stand out from the crowd, separate yourself from the crowd, and really add value to your investors. Because at the end of the day, they just want to turn a profit. They'll tell you, we really don't care what made up the expense side. as long as my profit side was enough for me to get involved with that transaction. That's really what's important to them. If they want to make a profit, So excellent question, by the way. Let's see, Karina. Okay, he's got it. Good stuff. Okay, you're welcome. Peggy says, no worries. Just took a few tries to get logged. Oh, I'm sorry, Peggy. You were talking about getting into this GoToWebinar. I thought you were using GoToWebinar for your own purposes for your clients. I apologize. Which you can do, by the way. Let's see. Might even don't really need to do anything. Might even be our internet here at the office. Yeah, a lot of times it is the internet, Peggy. That's quite frankly usually the culprit. Okay. Mio says, thank you, you're welcome. Okay. Let's see here. Debbie, let's move on. Okay, you got it, Debbie. Okay, next thing, guys, is this. Let's reduce my panel. I can see where I am. And by the way, I'm gonna keep going the next few webinars with marketing, because right now I want you guys to drum up some relationships, okay? Let's see here. The next one is Craigslist, okay? Now, if you go into the membership section again, you're going to see already a webinar that's been recorded on this subject. What's really important here, I'll give you some highlights though, is Craigslist is still a valuable tool. Up in Canada, we use Kijiji, okay? The thing to understand about Craigslist is you have to get into it and use it on a regular basis to learn what's working and what's not working. So in other words, different cities have different vibes and cultures and things like that, okay? So for example, up in New York City is actually a late starting city. I mean, you could stay in a hotel in Midtown Manhattan and wake up at 6 in the morning and the place is dead quiet. You wake up at 6 in the morning in a place like Washington, D.C., man, there's people already headed to work, So in any case, you have to understand the vibe and the culture of your city to know when it's active, when it's not active, and when it's sleep and all that kind of stuff. Because when you're posting Craigslist ads, a lot of people are using that system to post ads. And what happens is when you go into a particular category and you post, okay, the challenge is this. In real estate, there's other people posting in real estate. So it's a push down process. So you put your entry out there, you might be at the top of the list for a few seconds, and very quickly you'll find yourself being pushed down to the bottom because new entries are being made. All right. Now, having said that, you should understand that you should be posting 2 or 3 times a day if you do this in a traditional sense, like during the week, Monday through Friday. That would typically be around, say, around 9 o'clock in the morning, because once people get into work and get settled, a lot of them go right to goofing off and start looking at the computer, all right, going on the internet and wasting time. Believe me, I was in banking for years, and I managed 10 different businesses, and most of the waste was employees basically getting on the computer and goofing around, okay? In any case, you can take advantage of that as a realtor, all right, because they're looking for stuff, right? You should post it again around lunchtime, okay, and post it again late afternoon, right around the rush hour traffic time frame, or right before it. Okay, other areas would be you would post like middle of the afternoon when people start getting bored and they get bored with work and they're just looking to goof off. And then again in the evening, after, like between dinner and bedtime, there's another good time to post. But there's one time that most people just flat out ignore, and that's the weekends. Okay, it is a crying shame that most agents will post during the week trying to capture that work crowd. But I will tell you from personal experience, you can actually get pretty dramatic results by posting on Saturday and Sunday morning. People are waking up, having their coffee, they're getting ready to go to church, and they got a few minutes to kill, and they want to see if they can find something online that they can go look at that night, or that afternoon after church. So take advantage of your Saturdays and Sundays, guys. Most people don't do that, and you can separate yourself from the herd by posting on Saturdays and Sundays, okay? Much higher return call rate. So in any case, that's how you use Craigslist timing-wise, and again, most cases, Kijiji. Now, as far as what you put out there, I will tell you that you obviously want to put your listings out there. If you don't have listings, a lot of people don't know this, but HUD lets you advertise HUD properties. So let me explain this real quick. Years ago, I was selling properties for different asset managers. At one point, I had 12 different active accounts. So I was selling literally thousands of properties, right? And one of those accounts was HUD. I had the big one. I had the big kahuna. And I started recognizing other agents were starting to advertise my HUD listings. I said, hey, what's going on here? Those are my listings. And I realized when I looked at the listing agreement documentation with HUD that they consider HUD listings open listings, which means even though you can be the listing agent, other agents are allowed to advertise your listing, okay? Now, they can't use your pictures without your permission, things like that. They can't just basically plagiarize. But what they can do is go on to HUDhomestore.com, get HUD's take on the property and HUD's pictures, and you can create Craigslist ads from that information. Now, every now and then somebody will complain. Some agent will say, wait a sec, you can't advertise my listings. Those are my listings. Well, that's true in most cases. However, that's not true with HUD. And I've been in debates with on this subject over the years with different people in different states. And all you've got to do is get a HUD listing agreement or just call HUD, and they'll point you in the right direction and show you where you can find verbiage related to the subject. But in any case, the bottom line is this. If you don't have listings to advertise HUD listings, okay? And you can get some traction doing that way. Now, I'm not going to get into the mechanics of how you put a Craigslist ad out there, because there are tutorials within Craigslist. You just log in. Essentially, you can do an ad for free if it's your first ad. It doesn't cost anything. But if you're going to do multiple ads, they're going to recognize that, and you have to follow certain guidelines, and they're going to give you, there's help, basically facts and helps within Craigslist to help you understand how do you actually post correctly and ethically, all right? And I would follow the guidelines to a T. A couple of quick pointers: you may want to have multiple accounts, multiple email accounts, okay? Because if you go out there and try to put 20 advertisements out there, Craigslist may shut you down and say, hey, you're an actual business. You're not just an individual kind of a thing. So what you can do is learn to work around those restrictions by being creative. So multiple accounts is kind of a must in this business, okay? But the interesting thing is that Craigslist gets great responses from people still today, okay? So in any case, that's Craigslist. Again, if you want to go to your membership section and look online, you'll find a webinar dedicated just strictly to doing Craigslist ads. Beverly, our program administrator, did the webinar, so she walks you through specific examples. So you definitely want to look for that on the membership section, okay? In fact, let's just let's see here. I'm trying to think when we did Craigslist. Let me go back. Hang on one second. We're going to go backwards in time to last spring, I think it was. Okay, let's see if anybody recognizes YouTube, building our own website. Here it is. You can go back to 2016, April 6th, excuse me. Highlight the date of that webinar, download it. You get the audio visual, okay? And I highly encourage you to look at that because it's going to walk you through how do you actually do this, okay? Okay, so back to the content. All right, next thing is this. Facebook and LinkedIn, Twitter, Snapchat, there's all kinds of social media platforms now. Let's just talk about the two ones who are most closely related to business purposes, okay? If you go to facebook.com, My Investment Services, you'll see our Facebook page. You'll see out there, how we're actually creating our ads, okay? There's other websites I've had over the years, Win Realty Advisors, Hampton Roads Real Estate Guide, Northern Virginia Real Estate Guide, and they're still out there and active, right? The bottom line is this. Every one of you should have a Facebook presence, not just personal, but also business. And they're actually tied together the way Facebook works. But the thing is If you do have listings advertised, you should be putting them on Facebook, okay? You should also offer non-sales content. So here's the rule of thumb I want you to remember with Facebook. It's basically 1 to 7. So out of every 7 postings, 6 of them should be service-oriented, or basically you're just providing content. You're not actually selling anything. All right, interesting things, reports on, special reports on travel, or where's the hot travel locations these days, things like that. Okay. The 1 out of 7 is the one where you actually make an offer. So never actually directly ask for business. In this situation of Facebook, you want to make a covenant offer. In other words, have them go click on your website to get your free report, or maybe you got some free books. In fact, if you want to, I can have Paul send you guys a link to put on your websites where people can order and books for free, like how to buy flips and how to buy rentals and things like that. So keep that in mind. But Facebook, again, you got to be careful with Facebook, guys. There's actually a webinar on that. Let me go back here and see if we can identify it. There it is. How about that? Actually, the week before. So 2016, March 22nd, using Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook for marketing and for your investors, okay? You can learn more about it. Remember, that's audio visual, okay? So Facebook is pretty important. LinkedIn, I would say between the two, you should focus on Facebook. Excuse me. Once you're up and running, though, and you want to expand, like I've got a huge LinkedIn network, okay? I don't know how many thousands of people. And I do know people who use it successfully. I've had agents use LinkedIn quite successfully. Other people tend to struggle with it, but regardless, it can be a valuable, inexpensive way to communicate with your sphere. And same thing, don't always ask for business. Don't always offer them some opportunity to spend money. You want to, majority of the time, provide something that's relevant, meaningful, timely, okay, and typically business oriented, because most people on LinkedIn are professionals or business owners, okay. So LinkedIn's a pretty good tool. We use it for different purposes. You can certainly use it for yourself to put properties out there. Now, let's see, where do I want to go with this? Okay, let's talk about Twitter for a second. It's not on here. It is on that recording, though, that I want you to watch. All right, Twitter is interesting because you only have like 140 characters to use. So what you want to do is this. Let's say you have a link on your website for free home valuations or a free search of homes. Typically, those links will have, they can be quite lengthy. So in order for Twitter to work, what you want to do is use a system called TinyURL, TinyURL. What you do with TinyURL, guys, is you type in any link you want, like this one right here, type it in, and TinyURL will spit out a much smaller URL. With that much smaller URL, you can fit into your 140 characters that Twitter lets you use, okay? And you have more space to be creative in your wording, okay? So just keep that in mind, just guidelines to use when you're using Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, all right? Now again, I'm not going to go into details tonight on how you actually execute one of these. You can watch that prior webinar, download it, and get all the nitty-gritty details. And actually, Beverly does one of them and Jody does the other, and they actually walk you through live examples right there on that recorded webinar. So congratulations for having that, guys. Okay. In any case, one more thing on social media, you have to be, what you're posting has to be relevant and meaningful, okay? And you can't be spamming people. You can't always be asking for business, okay? You'll get complaints, okay? And if you violate the basic common courtesy rules of being a good online citizen, if you violate those rules, what happens, you'll find yourself being unfriended, unliked, and unconnected, okay? People will start to back away from you, and I've seen that happen directly. So none of these you want to basically, you don't want to make any of these the kind of thing that's going to totally consume you or cause you to be spammy. It's not the intention. These techniques are here for you to supplement your relationship building with the main techniques, okay? So let me just let that sink in for a second, for example. For example, most people will go real big on social media and actually spend a lot of money and not get a lot of results, okay? Social media doesn't replace the relationship building aspect of our business. It's a great way to get introductions, okay, to get people to raise their hands and say, yes, I want more. Well, then you turn into realtor mode or investor mode in some of your cases, and you put on a different hat and you work with them under those within that context, okay? So in any case, the bottom line is this: if you're irresponsible with it, you'll be unfriended, unliked, and unconnected before you can blink an eye. Okay, so let's move on to something more tangible, brick and mortar, which is churches. And a lot of people ignore the powerful marketing machine that a church bulletin can be. So now what I'm not suggesting here is I don't want you to go out there and just do a traditional ad in your local church bulletin, which you can do, by the way, okay? But if you look at them, a lot of them just look like a business card. In other words, I've seen agents, it looks like to me, they just hand the church administrator their business card. The church administrator fits it in on the page somewhere in their little pamphlet that they're handing out, or right, the bulletin they're handing out, and it doesn't get anywhere because it looks exactly like what it is, which is basically a snapshot or a photocopy of a business card. But remember this: you always have to make an offer, whether it's a business card, a brochure, a pamphlet, a bifold, whatever, greeting cards. You don't want to talk about yourself, so please write this down. You do not want to talk about yourself, number one. You do not want to ask for the business, number two. You don't ask for business unless you actually have a relationship already built, and they're basically agreed to work with you contractually, that kind of thing. Okay, what you're doing in the beginning is you're building the relationship, okay, which is really all we're doing here. So in any case, back to the church bulletin. What I would do is, if you're going to put an ad in the church bulletin, don't just basically give them what's on your business card. Make some type of an offer. So please write this down. You're going to say something like this: hey, for free home evaluation, visit www, and give them your website page where you have people type in their information and asking for a free home evaluation, okay? Now, if your link is really long, which a lot of cases it is, then you take that link and go to tinyurl and get a dramatically reduced link, okay? And that dramatically reduced link, the tiny URL, that's what you put out there, okay? So you're not, in other words, put that right on the church bulletin. All right, another offer would be this. We've always offered them a free home evaluation because that can lead, potentially to a listing. Just looking for the appointment at this point. But the second opportunity is this: say for free search of homes, visit, and you fill in the blank, www, right? .meho.realestate.com, something like that. Okay, and you provide them search capabilities. Most brokers allow you to provide that directly to your clients through your interface. It all depends on the rules for your area. Some of you have to go through the broker site, and you get basically a subset of that site. Okay, some places you can offer it directly to your clientele. Okay, but the bottom line is this: is back to the church bulletin. Give them two offers. One to appeal to people who might have some interest in wanting to know what their house would sell for, which could potentially lead to a listing. Another one is to attract the buyers by offering a free access to the properties for sale in your area. Okay, very powerful tool. In any case, that's church bulletin. Okay, and there's other things you can do with churches too. I just want to go through these. Whoops, a little bit of. Let me go back. I'm sorry, I'm skipping too far back. So churches, grocery stores. Okay, grocery store is very similar, same kind of thing. They'll have, a lot of times they'll have what's called a bulletin board right physically there in the entryway into this grocery store. Some of them have actually started removing them because people were cluttering them up with all kinds of stuff and not removing their ads when they were done. But regardless, grocery stores are still a pretty powerful tool. If you go in there and they have a bulletin, what you can do is, if you don't want to put up all your listings, but just put a printout of one of your listings with tear-offs at the bottom. So a tear-off would be a strip of phone numbers written vertically across the bottom of the page. These are your phone numbers, and maybe you're able to cut out 15 of those, okay? So just do your slices going up through the paper up to the point where you need it, and then do a cross cut all the way across, and you'll have all these little pieces of paper with phone numbers in it, okay? In any case, that allows people to tear them off. That's what they're going to do, all right? So if you put by the way, you can put a flyer up there. Let's say you're promoting a workshop, you can do a real quick, easy flyer and show them a little bit about yourself, show them some visuals, excuse me, like you and your dog, or you with your surfboard, or you with your bike, whatever the case may be, okay? Show them you're a regular person, you like to have fun, and they might want to work with you as a result. So grocery stores, same thing, very inexpensive, easy to navigate through. Next one, restaurants. This is one of my favorites, and we'll maybe make this the last technique. Let me see here. Restaurants. Well, let's see how far we get, okay? Restaurants. All right, really important here. There's restaurants in virtually every community, if not directly in the community, very close by. So what happens is people who live in a certain community get used to going to that restaurant. There's a certain level of, I guess you can call it loyalty, if you will, because if the restaurant offers good food at a good price and people don't have to get in their car and drive, or that they can drive there, but it's just a very short drive, a lot of people like to go to the local favorite and hang out. That's just part of our culture, right? So in any case, you can take advantage of that. Now, there's obvious things you can do, like if they have placemats, put an ad on a placemat. And again, on your ad, don't just put your name and contact information and say, I'm great, okay, or call me. Don't do that stuff. Make an offer. And actually write that down, because we're going to emphasize that a lot. Making offers is the way you get business. You make an offer, okay, and if it's an irresistible offer, people can't refuse it, all right? So in any case, make an offer, put it on you can put the obvious on the placemats on the tables. Usually there's a place where business owners can leave their business cards, like a display on the counter. You can do that. But here's what I really like about restaurants, guys. Because people like, when they find something they like to keep going back, and particularly if it's convenient, it's easy for them to go there on a Friday afternoon after work, or go there on a Saturday after they're done, after ready to hang out for the evening. Lots of reason for people to keep revisiting the same locations. And it works whether you're dealing with owners or tenants, okay? So here's what I'm getting at. If you're working on, let's say you're working with landlords who are buying rentals in an area of one of the local restaurants, and I got a perfect example. I used to have a bunch of properties in a little area where there was a restaurant called the Blarney Stone. All right, and just like it sounds, it was an Irish pub with four-leaf clovers everywhere, and the guy crushed it business-wise, right? And what we did was we went to the restaurant, and we did this a number of times, by the way. Lots of restaurants will do this. Enter into an agreement where they can give you coupons for buy one dinner get one free, or buy a dinner and get a free cocktail or a beer, or buy a dinner and get a free dessert, or 10% off. There's all kinds of things you can do with restaurant gift certificates and basically, brochures, pamphlets, gift cards, whatever you want to call it, little coupons, things like that. Okay, so here's what I did. Here's what you should do too. I highly encourage you to do this: is visit your local restaurants, ask them if they would be willing to help you create some coupons for their restaurants, and you fill in the blank. It could be to post in local apartment houses. It could be to hang on a doorknob at people's homes, or don't put anything inside the mailbox. If you're not a U.S. Postal Service rep, don't do it. It's illegal. But you can thumbtack something to the back side of a mailbox on the post, for example. All right, and what that would be is a little coupon saying, "Hey, if you know anybody looking to buy a home, please have them give me a call. And if you do, here's a free coupon for you for your willing to take action." Same thing with tenants, guys. You can go to an apartment complex. Let's say you manage some apartments for somebody, and you need good tenants. You can send this out to all the good tenants and say, if you refer another tenant to me, I will you can get this free card, right? This free restaurant card. The benefit to you is a lot of people will recommend people that they work with, go to school with, go to church with, because they don't want just anybody moving to the neighborhood. They like to have the fact that they can have influence on who's going to be moving to the area. Okay. So restaurants is a great way to get coupons, buy one get one free, get a free drink, get a free dessert, to encourage people to come in there. Okay. You can use it as a bonus, or let's say a tenant does refer somebody to you. You can say, you know what, I gave you one a few weeks ago, but now that you've actually procured somebody, I'm going to give you another one. Here's a free dessert one. So just keep in mind, you can use those coupons. The restaurateur loves it because he or she gets business coming in. You love it because you get your clients more actively engaged in the process of serving investors, or getting involved with themselves more directly, perhaps acquiring investment properties. Okay. In any case, pretty powerful tool, restaurants, right? Sometimes they'll have limits. Or let's do this. Can we do one more, guys? Let me check the panel here before we jump in, but let's see if we can do one more. So hang on one second. Let me check questions first before we move on. And we do have some questions. So hang on, let me go back to the beginning. Let's see, hang on one second. I think we're going to go back. Okay, so Debbie is asking, does it cost to be on HUD? No, it does not cost to be, Debbie, but if you go to HUD Home Store website, look for instructions. It's not really user-friendly, to be honest with you. It's a government site. But you'll see a place where it says, do you want to list homes for HUD, or do you want to sell HUD homes? You need to get what's called an NAID, which needs to be at the broker level. So if you're not a broker, your office manager can do this typically. Go online and request and receive an NAID, which gives you and the agents in your office the right to make offers on HUD properties. Okay, so you need that. And if you want to be a listing agent with HUD, you got to jump through a lot more hoops. You got to prove yourself first, and like I did, eventually you'll start to get some listings. It just takes a while, but the bottom line is no, there's no cost to that. Okay, so this is from Michael. Hi, Michael. So Michael is asking, okay, hang on one second. What if you have clients that are interested in investing in cities that I'm not licensed in, but they want you to help them find investment properties? Would you suggest get a real estate license in that city? If not, what would be an appropriate percentage split with other brokerages? Okay, so Michael, a couple of things here. Within a state, wherever you have your license, that license gives you the right to practice anywhere in that state. Okay. Now the challenge is, you're right. If you're using the MLS, you're relying on it, and you're in LA and you don't have you're not part of that San Francisco board, and your friend is in San Francisco, says, hey man, Michael, I just want to have you help me. I know you're a realtor in California. Why don't you just help me? You can still represent them. You can help them buy and sell properties anywhere in the state. All right. The challenge is you're not going to be able to you're not going to have access to the MLS up there. All right. So what I would do is, if you want to go through the effort of looking outside the MLS, which is I do recommend, by the way, you can certainly do that. Okay, and you can still act as a licensee and represent them. However, if you think they're going to be a repeat client, what you might want to consider is refer them out to somebody up in the area. And I've taught this, Michael, literally at probably 450 some odd offices around the U.S., mostly KW. You can go on the community site and see who is trained in that area to work with investors, and you get a referral fee out of it. The good news is you keep the client. You just sent out the transaction. That's all you did. So you get a referral fee from that transaction. That's probably going to be more appropriate, more likely, because if they're in a different city and a distance away from you, do you really want to be driving back and forth like that all the time? Now, if they're very close to you, okay, sometimes you can partner up with another agent to have them provide you properties from the area. But I just don't want you to rely solely on the MLS. That's a dangerous proposition to be in. But nonetheless, yes, you can partner with somebody who might be able to set you up on a search that you can share with your client, and then you tell them you'll give like a reverse referral. You'll give them 25% should this thing consummate a deal. All right. So that's a good question. Excellent question, by the way. And let's see here. I think I answered the rest of that question. Okay, next question, Barbara. Okay, I have been advertising in 3 church bulletins and have had no success. What more can I do? So, Barbara, were you using, hi, Barbara, by the way, sorry. Hey, Barbara, I have a question for you. I'm going to email you. You submitted a form for a coaching call, and it had dates on there that apparently the scheduling system don't have available, but I don't want to shortchange it, so I'm going to reschedule that. I'll send you an email on that, okay? But in any case, back to your question here. If you could scan in a copy, Barbara, of what you're putting in your church bulletin, scan it to me and send it to me, and I'll critique it for you. Okay, let's do that. I might have you add some special language like specializing in real estate investors or something like that. Okay, but just send it to me. I'll critique it for you. Let's see. This is Cedric. Hey, Cedric. Gary, should we have a landing page for the free offer to capture contact information? Absolutely. Yeah. So, Cedric, you can do a couple things here. You can have them email you directly, right, to get your free report, free book, free whatever it is you're offering. Okay. You can have them text you. Okay, but just remember, texting, if you do it a lot, there's actually guidelines, federal guidelines for texting to avoid spam. But the other obvious thing is, yes, you can certainly create a real cheap landing page. And if you're in most brokerage companies today, if you're Keller Williams, which you probably are, you have 2 different websites that they give you. And one of them offers a property search page where your clients can go online and look for properties that are for sale. And another one is where they can enter their contact data and information about their house if they're looking for a fee evaluation. So that's part of your platform. So you've already got it available, so you don't have to pay for it. You can also, Cedric, on your Facebook, do something on Facebook too. Okay, where you just have people fill in name, number, address, the whole 9 yards. Okay, let's see. Can you give an example of an offer? Yeah, Fassel. So 2 offers. One of them is for free home evaluation, visit www. and whatever your landing page is. If it's really long, I suggest you use tiny URL. Okay. The other one is offer free search of properties in your area, and that's your page that gives you the access to search for properties. So that's your second offer. Always make 2 offers, one for the sellers and one for the buyers. Okay, at least those 2 is a minimum. If you're working with investors, obviously make a 3rd offer and say, look, email me, or go to my web page, or text me, or whatever the case is, or go on to Facebook, right, and leave your information there. They can send it as a private message. But bottom line is, make your offer there too. Always remember, every channel that you have available to you, whether it's print media, social media, emails, texting, what have you, always think in terms of what can you offer that person. Okay, they're prospects at this point. Usually at a minimum, they're prospects. Sometimes even clients. So those would be the 2 main offers that I can think of right now. Okay. All right. If Barbara Concepts, can you share your critique on her church ad with me, Sarah? Oh yeah. Hey, so Barbara, if you want, can we bring that up in next week's webinar? Can I use it as an example? Because it's a great way for other people to learn. We do a lot of sharing here. So a lot of times people will bring in properties that you're looking at to invest in, and we'll bring it right up here on the computer. We'll go through the analyzer right here online with you guys directly live. So if we can do that, Barbara, that would be wonderful if you're willing to do that. Consents. Yeah, she says consents, not concepts. Okay, I get it. So, okay, guys. Let's see, Barbara, sure thing. Mine is the business card format. So, Barbara, we'll try to change that. We're gonna give you some really good suggestions next week. We're gonna change that for you, and change the business card format, because most other agents are doing that, and we're gonna help you separate yourself from the crowd. That's what we're gonna do. So, okay, guys, that's pretty much it for the night. good session tonight. Next week we'll pick up where we left off. I hope you guys can see some other possibilities for you to engage in very inexpensive marketing. These are mostly location-driven efforts, okay? But if you do that, boy, you really set yourself apart from the crowd. I appreciate you guys being online. Welcome again to all the new folks and to all the veterans, by the way. I will see you all next week, which is going to be next Tuesday night. So that's next Tuesday night, 4 o'clock California time, 7 o'clock Eastern time. I can't remember if we have a set agenda for next week or not. I'm not quite sure. But remember the week, remember the 15th of May, guys, we got a special guest coming on to talk about triple net leases and how you can profit from them as an agent, okay? And an investor too, for that matter. So anyways, thanks guys for participating. I appreciate it. I look forward to this every week. I look forward to hearing from you on one-on-ones, and keep it up, keep up the good work, and please let me know when you need to go over something, okay? All right, God bless you all. Hope you have a great rest of the week, and we will see you next week. Okay, bye-bye.